Thank you for downloading this podcast from Digital Mindfulness. This is episode number 20. Welcome to Digital Mindfulness. My guest today is the digital expert Steven Van Belleghem. He is focused on the customer experience in the digital age and regularly speaks about this topic around the world. Steven is an entrepreneur. He's partner at the company Nextworks and also a co-founder at Embracelet, which is a wearable technology company. Steven is the author of 3 books, which are The Conversation Manager, The Conversation Company, and When Digital Becomes Human. In this episode, we talk about things that everybody needs to hear, mainly how organizations can use digital technologies to create better relationships with the people they exist to serve. I hope you enjoy this episode with Steven Van Belleghem. So, Steven, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on Digital Mindfulness today. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here and to be able to be talking about when digital becomes human.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, to make just people a little bit more familiar with your perspective and your work, can you let us know a little bit more about you? How did you come to be working on human moments and humanism and technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, since the beginning of my career, I was really into the impact of digital on human behavior. So in 2001, I joined Insights Consulting, which was the first online research company in Europe, and I was employee number 8. Later on, I became one of the co-owners of the company, and we were always like trying to understand how consumers reacted to these new digital things. And in the beginning it was just just websites, and then after a while it was about social media, and I've done so many research that I decided to write a book about that. And in 2010 my first book came out. It's called The Conversation Manager, and it was basically about a topic that many people talked about. It was about the impact of social media on branding and communication. And that was a bigger hit than I ever dreamt it would be. We sold more than 35,000 books of it in 2 years' time, which created some sort of a new career for me. I was invited more to speak on different events. And then, the ball gets rolling. So I wrote a different book. It also went well. And then suddenly I was doing more lectures and advisory work than I was doing research at our own company. So at that point, that became a little bit difficult. So at that point, I decided to leave Insights and start a new company. In the beginning, it was on my own, just giving lectures, workshops, keynotes, all helping companies to adapt to the new digital world. My focus became more and more onto customer centricity in the digital world at that moment. And then I came in touch with an old buddy of mine, which is Peter Hinson. He is an entrepreneur. He had different companies, and he was looking for something else as well. So we decided to bring the forces together. And one of our first things that we've done was organize a trip to San Francisco and Silicon Valley with a group of European senior executives. And we wanted to take them over there to understand the spirit of innovation and to see what was going on. And during that trip, which was about 3 years ago, I was really impressed by the extreme focus on customers that those digital companies had. And what I didn't know before that trip is that they spend a lot more time on thinking about the customer and really thinking about what the impact of technology is. Before that, I was really focusing a lot on technology, but now I'm convinced that it's not about technology, it's about the impact that technology has on people. And those digital companies were already thinking about, okay, how can we, make sure that we're not a cold rational type of company, but that we add some emotion to the relations with our customers, because that's what people going to want a few years from now. And that was really, I was really intrigued by that, and that gave me the idea of my latest book, which is called When Digital Becomes Human. Because at that point, I was really convinced that the future is not just to be good in digital, but also to reinvent the role of humans in your organization. Because what you see is that the consequence of the digital transformation is that you will have a human transformation. The role of humans will not stop, like many people think, but the role of humans will definitely be different than they are today. And things got rolling, and I did some research. I talked with a lot of people about the topic, and I was really passionate about it. And now in the last 2 years, that's what I've been doing, talking about that and trying to learn more about that.
See, now this is absolutely fascinating, and of course, this is pretty much what we focus on here at Digital Mindfulness.
Yeah.
In terms of right, how do improving that human interaction with technology. So, I'm thrilled to get into all of this with you. But how would you describe human or organizational relationships or interactions with technology at the moment?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I think there are two sides of the story. I think you have society, and you have, let's say, people in society that are working with technology, and a lot of companies are afraid that the market will not follow, or that their employees will not follow. But I don't fully agree with that, because if you look at people's households, they have the latest technology. iPads just came out 6 years ago, and everyone has one, or at least some sort of a tablet. And people are used to work with technology. Even my 65-year-old mom describes her holidays now based on the quality of the Wi-Fi that she has in different hotels and in different restaurants. And she never touched a computer in her entire life, but now she has different purses or different iPads, a big one and a small one, depending on the purse that she has to take. So I'm pretty convinced that people deal in a pretty good way with technology. I think the issue is in bigger corporations, that they underestimate how important technology has become for people, both their employees and their customers. Technology is like our sixth sense today, and if it doesn't operate well, it's like if you don't see well enough anymore, then you need glasses or lenses. Well, if your technology doesn't work, it kind of feels the same. So the expectations are pretty high, and I think we're reaching this point of zero tolerance towards digital failure. We've seen it in the news, right? The last few weeks, Facebook was out a few times. That's world news at that moment. No one talks about IS or politics anymore. At that moment, when Facebook is out, we have a real world problem to solve, which is getting Facebook back on air. And that shows how technology has become mainstream, and it's just part of our lives. And I'm still convinced that big, more analog companies underestimate how far we are at this point with that.
Do you think then, Stephen, that with this zero, I like that phrase, zero tolerance to failure for technology, do you think that we as humans then transpose that idea to other humans? We don't expect failure at all from our technology, and do you think we kind of project that onto other humans in terms of our relationships?
Do you mean that we don't accept it from humans as well?
Yeah. Are we that intolerant to failure, I guess, from humans?
No, I don't think so. I think we can see the difference between technology and people, and I think the fun part is that we as people we do crazy stuff all the time, and we fail all the time, which is perfectly fine, because we know that we do that ourselves all the time, and we have let us say, the mental flexibility to deal with that. I think it's completely different with technology. It has become such a normal thing in our life that if it fails, we don't understand that. If humans fails, we know that most people will try to solve it, and we will talk about that. And then you see that the expectations that we have towards humans are completely different than towards technology. I think the expectations that we have towards technology is that it's fast, easy, and fun. That's what we want. And it has to work. That's it. When you look at people, we have different expectations. The most adored people, or the people that you love to work with, they excel in three typically human skills, which are empathy, passion, and creativity. And you don't meet empathic, passionate computers or creative computers, but you do meet passionate and empathic people. And those are the kind of people that we love. So those are the expectations that we have towards humans, which are totally different and almost totally the opposite of the expectations that we have towards technology. And that's why I'm convinced that, in a customer relation, they both add value. And it's not digital or human, it's digital and human. And I want both from a company. At a certain moment, I don't want to have that human touch. If I want to do a bank transaction, I just want it to be fast and easy. It just has to work. They don't need to bother me with all kind of additional stuff. But maybe during that even same day, I change completely and I have an issue and I really want to have an in-depth conversation with someone from that bank, and I want them to understand me. I want them to show passion for my problem, and they have to be creative to come with some sort of a solution for me. That could happen on the same day. The bank cannot predict when that will happen. They have to offer both possibilities to me, and me as a customer, I want to choose at those between those options at the moment that I think it's right to choose either one of those options.
That's really interesting because you could use that same example for health and medicine and
Hmm.
wealth and wellness, couldn't you? Insofar as I don't know. I mean, there are so many parts of the medical process which are being automated, but having that human interaction with a doctor or a nurse is incredibly important still.
Exactly, I fully agree. And there, the technology are the medications or the tools that doctors use in hospitals or at home. You just want those things to work. That's it. You don't like the side effects, it just has to work. But at a certain moment, maybe when you're feeling uncertain, when you had recent surgery and
Yeah.
things aren't working out, you just want to talk with someone and you want them to listen to you. I fully agree with that.
And that's the empathy right there, isn't
Exactly.
it?
Exactly.
Do you think that this can ever be imitated or aped by technology or by software, that we can actually kind of input empathy into
Mhm.
machines, or that we can input creativity and compassion into machines?
I'm pretty convinced that there are a whole bunch of smart people that are trying to do that right now. And you see it happening, right? One of the things that fascinates me is the whole thing about the Turing test, that
Yeah,
they try to imitate human behavior, and people have to guess if it's a computer or a human. And at this moment, most people still can guess who the computer is and who the human is, but probably 5 or 10 years from now, it will be a different ballgame. Which means for companies, at a certain moment, they will have to choose between programmed empathy and real empathy. And I'm pretty convinced 5 to 6 years from now that the programmed empathy will be pretty good, and the virtual assistants will be pretty good, and that they will have a lot of advantages compared to the humans. The digital assistants will be available 24/7. They are never ill. They're always friendly. It's always up to date, their data, and so on. So we shouldn't make the mistake of thinking that it will be less good. I think it will be fantastic. And I'm also sure that people will prefer the programmed or fake empathy above real unfriendliness. I don't think anyone likes authentic unfriendliness. But at the same time, I'm also convinced that nothing will beat the real human touch. But that's a mistake that a lot of companies make. They think that, okay, the human part, we have humans, so we're done with that. No, we only need to do the digital part. But I totally disagree. I think the digital part will be the easy part. You can buy it, you can program it, you can outsource it. But the human part is something that you will have to do every day. It's about making the business personal. And companies that succeed in that will be successful. And I'm really convinced that we will like or prefer the real personal stuff above the programmed stuff. But it will be really hard for a lot of companies to perform better than the virtual assistants. That's what my assumption is at this moment.
I really like that idea. I really like that idea because it does put power back to people,
Yeah,
and our own qualities, insofar as even though we are having technological development and it is going very, very quickly and it's very powerful, that there is still a role for humans. And actually, we do have to adapt our behavior in digitized society towards this new environment. So even human behavior towards each other is going to have to change. So we are going to need training.
absolutely. Absolutely, and I think the message of hope is actually that the human part of the world will become more important every day that digital is increasing in frequency. Because what's happening now is, for example, look at a bank. The number of visits to a bank retail place, a retail outlet, has decreased with a factor 10,000 in the last 10 years. So a lot of people think because of that, the importance is going down. But I disagree with that. The only thing that's going down is the frequency. And because of the fact that the frequency is going down, the importance is actually increasing. You know, it's the law of scarcity. When something becomes scarce, it's increasing in value. And the one thing that will decrease rapidly between companies and their customers is the human contact. And because of that decrease, it becomes more important. So that means that the more digital the world becomes, the more important the human part becomes.
So one of the things that you talk about, well, sorry, one of the things that we talk about in digital mindfulness is how we can make technology invisible in human interactions. And to do this, in your work, you've spoken about scaling human moments. Could you just explain what this is?
Yes, I like the idea of making technology invisible. I've never heard that, but that's exactly what technology should do. I think it's a beautiful phrase. To answer the question, scaling the human touch through technology. You know, when we talk about the human touch, we often think that, you know, you need to give everyone a pat on the shoulder every day, or talk with them. And that's, of course, possible if you have a small business, but if you have millions of customers, that's just impossible to do. So there's nothing wrong with using technology to scale the human touch. And there are a number of, I think, very easy techniques that we can use for that. Probably the easiest one and the most common one is video, using more video. There's this company here in I'm from Belgium, but there's a company in Belgium and Holland. It's called Coolblue. And it's the biggest privately owned e-commerce store in the world. They're selling mainly multimedia products and stuff like that. They're doing more than 500 million in turnover, and they are famous here for their extreme customer centricity. They have a net promoter score that is close to 70, so they're doing a fantastic job. And they're a company that's really investing in the human touch. So Coolblue, what I really like is their YouTube channel. They do something very simple but with a huge impact. They are using their own employees in very short YouTube videos, and they're actually videos in Dutch, and they describe differences between products. So like they're making a video, what's the difference between an iPhone and a Samsung Galaxy? Or they're making videos how to put a SIM card in an iPad and stuff like that. It's spoken in Dutch, so it's only for a Dutch-speaking market. It's their own employees. They're pretty, rational kind of videos, how-to videos. But last year, they had more than 20 million views on those videos. And I talked with the owner of that company, and I told him, tell me something more. And he said, well, at a certain moment, we were thinking about what will we do? Will we make animated videos or videos with real people? And he said, I'm an e-commerce company. We never see our clients in real life, so I definitely want to show that we are real. And we really made the choice to go with our own employees. And he said the secret is volume. So these guys make about 50 to 100 videos a day to put on their YouTube channel. And their vision is to help customers. And there's, of course, a very smart inbound marketing system behind that. But I like the fact that these guys are using technology to scale the human touch. They're reaching out to 20 million people in a very low cost, a very efficient way. And because of that, they have a very human face, even though they are a typically digital-only company.
If you're a company and you're listening to this and you're saying, okay, we've got to increase the human moments in our organization, what is the effect of that?
There's a double effect. First of all, there's the market. And what you see is that I've guided a number of companies that really invested more in being more emotional and trying to reach out to customers in a more human way. What you see is that the NPS scores are increasing rapidly, and really rapidly. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time conversion rates are also going up. So they're selling more. But I personally think the biggest impact is internally in an organization. What I've seen is if you ask people to think about how they can become more human, how they can add that human touch as a differentiator in a digital world, it just gives a lot of energy and a lot of oxygen to teams. Because people are concerned about the digital evolution. They are concerned about their job. If you tell them that digital will become the commodity and people will be the differentiator, it gives energy. They start to brainstorm and they come up with ideas, and they are very positive about that. So it reduces the amount of negative feelings about digital evolutions, and it gives people the energy to do new stuff. And I think that, personally, I believe that that is the biggest impact of the whole thing.
And I really want to kind of go on from this, because one of the most concerning issues at the minute is this whole idea of technological unemployment. People are really scared about their jobs, and there's a lot of impressive literature out there that says that software is just going to make a lot of like middle class jobs obsolete, like customer service or accounting, etc. But at the same time, all of the companies that you've been speaking about want to become customer centric.
Right.
They want to, like, have a better relationship with their customers, as this makes them more successful. So I guess my question to you is, do people really have to fear technological unemployment in a customer centric world?
To be honest, I don't know. But I'm a positive guy, and there are a number of things that I see why I would say it's probably going to be bumpy, but in the end, I think it's going to be positive. And just look at history. If you go back 200 years, we had the Industrial Revolution. Before that, everyone was working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. We had child labor, and everyone lived in total poverty. At that moment, they started to invent machines that would take away the human labor. So I can imagine back then they had kind of the same discussions. But what happened is that because of the innovations, there were a whole lot of new jobs that popped up. The economy grew, and because of that, it wasn't really an issue. That's the first thing in history. Second thing is, after the Second World War, a lot of women started to go to the labor market. In theory, for every woman that came to the labor market, a man would have lost his job. If you think in a linear way, which never happened because of the fact that we got more creativity and more power to the market because of the additional workforce. The economy started to grow, and there came new jobs that we didn't know up front. And I'm maybe naive, but I'm kind of thinking that the same thing will happen now. The new workforce is now computers and robots, and because of that, we create, on the one hand, new jobs. On the other hand, we create more interesting, more valuable jobs, and maybe we will have to work less, because that's what's been happening in the last 200 years. We all started to work less, and that's my theory. And the second thing is, I've recently seen a piece of research that showed that the more digital advanced a country was, the less unemployment there was in that country. So, the combination of that research and just looking at history, and I know that's not a guarantee that the same thing will happen again, makes me look at it in a more positive way than most people do.
So then, Stephen, how would you suggest then that people stay relevant in a digital-centric world?
I think we will have to not work harder, but we will have to work better, because everything will become more transparent. And you will see more and more if people are not performing better than a computer. And I think that if you don't perform better than a computer or a robot, you will get into trouble at a certain moment. So our performance levels will have to increase. And we have to make sure that we're good in those things that computers are not good at. It's like those three that I discussed in the beginning of our conversation, the empathy, creativity, and passion. I think we need to be really good in those things. And see how computers are evolving, and making sure that we're always good in those things that computers are not good at. I think that will be the answer to it.
That's really interesting, that perhaps empathy, compassion, and creativity training, kind of almost like digital age empathy, digital age compassion, these are going to be really important for people to be skilled up in the future. So my penultimate question is about data, and about customer centricity. Insofar as when there's more customer centricity, that means then that software or companies need to know more about people's behavior, and that's represented in data. But people, after the Snowden revelations, were quite concerned about companies having ever more information and data about us. But how can companies ensure that their customers and even their staff get a better deal with regards to data and collection?
Well, I think the answer is return on data. I think people are okay with the fact that they share their data as long as they get enough return on their data. And I know people are saying that they're concerned about it, but if you look to their behavior, it's not really aligned with their statements, because otherwise we would all drop out of Facebook and Google and stuff like that. But we don't. We keep on using it more and more, even though we know that they have access to everything that we do. But we're okay with that because we get a fantastic service in return for free. And if you're not okay, you just have to leave them. So if the return on data is high enough, and if the trust in certain companies is high enough, there's no privacy issue. There was an interesting case in Holland last week. There was an insurance company that said, we're going to give you sensors for your car, and if you drive safe, you will have to pay less for your car insurance. We will give you a wearable, and if you walk every day, you will have to pay less for your life insurance, which is a fantastic idea, if you ask me. But still, they got attacked on Twitter like crazy because people said, yeah, we don't really trust this and we're not sure about privacy and so on and so on. So it's not going to happen. The funny thing is, there's this startup in New Jersey in the US which is called HiOscar, which is a startup in the health insurance industry. They do exactly the same thing in health insurance. You get a wearable and you pay less if you walk. And everyone loves them. Everyone is really excited by them. So excited that from zero on the day they started, today, 2 years later, they have 12% of the market in a stable market. So people really love it. And I was thinking, okay, what happened here? You know, they have the same idea, but the market is complaining about privacy with the more older company, and with the startup, everyone thinks it's really cool. So I think it has a lot to do with trust. If you trust the company, you're okay with them dealing with your data. If you don't trust them, it will always be an issue. So the fact that they complain about data initiatives shouldn't lead to a privacy discussion in the company. It should lead to a trust discussion in the company, because that's the real concern. And the last thing that I would like to add to that is, I think in the next 5 years we will all see that privacy is not the issue, but security is the issue. I don't think Facebook and Google have bad intentions with our data, but I'm really convinced that there are a lot of bad guys out there that do have bad intentions with our data. And I'm also concerned that we don't protect ourselves enough against those bad practices. And I'm pretty sure 5 years from now, we will all have some sort of digital security in our homes, cars, and everywhere we go, just that we have good locks now in our houses for physical thieves.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit my opinion on that.
Yeah. On one of your videos, one of your most recent videos, it was really interesting. You said that people listen to technology more than they listen to humans. And I really wanted to talk to you about that, because I think it's true. But could you just explain what your thinking was behind that, why people listen to notifications and technology more than we do other people?
Yeah, of course. I started thinking like that due to a funny anecdote. I was with a group of a board of a big pharmaceutical company. I was with them for a week in Silicon Valley. We were looking at the future of healthcare. And in the beginning of the trip, they all got an Apple Watch. And people that have an Apple Watch will know that every hour that watch is telling you that you need to stand up for at least 1 minute, because that's good for your health. So the funny thing was, we had like 15 meetings in 3 days with this group of senior people, and meeting some startups and some other companies. Every meeting, suddenly they were standing up because the watch told them to stand up. And I was looking at them and I said, this is extremely interesting and extremely funny. And I told them after 2 days, I said, guys, do you realize what's going on? Just imagine that in the beginning of our trip, I would have agreed some sort of a secret sign with you, like if I scratch my hair, you'll have to stand up, because that's going to be fun during the meeting. I think they would have put me on the first plane back to Belgium, because that would have been the most stupid idea in the history of their life. But if the Apple Watch tells them to stand up, hey, then it's cool to do it. And then I looked around and I looked at my own profile, and then I suddenly realized that you do listen to technology more than to other people. It's like on my Apple Watch, I have this app that tells me when I have to put suntan lotion on, because of the UV index at a certain moment. And the funny thing is, if my watch tells me to put suntan lotion on, I do it. If my wife asks me to do that, I start to argue about it. So it's really painful to see how you listen more to a piece of hardware and software around your arm than to other people.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that we would obey our machines more than our human counterparts?
I think it's a combination of the coolness of these new gadgets. Maybe that will decrease over time as well, but you know, the fact that people see all these things happening, they think it's cool, so they play along. But you also, and that's maybe different than with people, you also get rewards. They give you medals. They pat you on the shoulder the entire time if you're doing good things. So if your watch tells you to stand up and you stand up, 2 minutes later, it congratulates you. So you get a lot of positive feedback from the technology if you do what it asks you to do. So maybe as humans, we have to give each other more positive feedback, and then we start to listen to each other as well. I don't know. Would be a cool experiment to try it out.
You know, it's really interesting you say this, because we just had a discussion with BJ Fogg, who runs the Persuasive Technology Lab in Stanford. And one of the things that he says that's important with our interactions with technology, or getting people to develop good habits, is that success breeds success. Mm-hmm. So if you can positively reinforce someone that, you know, like, well done, you took 5,000 steps, or well done, you stood up, then that encourages people to develop good habits. And so it was interesting that you spoke about this on your video, and I'm just wondering how you think that we could maybe weave that into that whole idea into kind of organizational interaction, say with either their staff or with their customers, that, you know, if we are ready to believe what machines say and to act upon their advice, I'm wondering, how do you think that could be used to maybe improve customer relations? Or
that's a very good idea. I've never thought about that, but you know, I was just thinking while you were talking, the fact that, you know, if you do 5,000 steps, maybe the first time you want to tell that to your friends that I've done 5,000 steps, but you don't want to brag about it the entire time, right? But your watch or your phone or whatever thing knows that you've done it, so you get a reward without bragging about it. And maybe that's an interesting thing. I've talked with a lot of people that are in customer service, and very often they are frustrated because they're doing so many good things, and it's invisible for the organization. And it's only like the bad things pop up at a certain moment, and that just wipes out all the positive efforts that they've done. What if we could find some sort of a system that if a customer service individual does something fantastic for a client, that the computer can recognize that, and because of that, something positive happens or pops up somewhere else in the company, so that it becomes transparent without that person having to brag about it, because people don't want to brag about their good stuff the entire time. You know, that's just not part of our culture. But if we could automate that a computer brags about you, that could be cool.
That could be cool. Brilliant. Stephen, where can people find out more about you and your work?
They can definitely visit my website. So it's Steven van Belleghem with a GH. So it's a kind of difficult name, but that's where they can find me. They can find me on Twitter as at StephenVBE, and on YouTube they can find me if they want to see presentations of me. I have a SlideShare channel where all my presentations are available. So I have a lot of content out there that I'm happy to share with everyone.
Fantastic, and I'll definitely make links to all of these
in the
show notes.
Thank you.
But Steven van Belleghem, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really, really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It was fun.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Steven's take on the ways that people can stay relevant in an increasingly digitized environment is incredibly important. We should all be taking more notice to develop our empathy, compassion, and creativity. If you like this, please leave us a comment on iTunes or SoundCloud, as this really helps us. Until next week, when we talk with more amazing people improving life in the digitized age, take care.